Gotham Knights is releasing in October. It's right around the corner, and there is one major villain who has been alluded to pretty heavily in the marketing, and I haven't seen tons of discussion surrounding him. And so today I wanted to talk about whether or not I think he will appear in the game and whether or not I think he should appear in the game. Now, this character, again, as I mentioned, has been teased pretty heavily in the marketing. We've seen that this version of Jason Todd, for example, is resurrected. He was killed, and we can see that Barbara Gordon was for a time paralyzed, or at least unable to walk, as it does seem that they have retconned the spinal injuries from the comics so that her rehabilitation back into becoming Batgirl is more realistic and a bit less tasteless than it would have been. But ultimately, this villain, of course, is the Joker. He is the one who caused Barbara Gordon's injuries in the comics, and he is the one who killed off Jason Todd in the comics as well. In a recent trailer, a thug held up a shield that said something to the effect of "Harley is here," ultimately confirming Harley Quinn's existence in this universe and perhaps even involvement in this game. And if Harley Quinn is around, there is a good chance that Joker is around as well. Joker is such a great villain, and he has been in many films, many games, many comics, but he is such a good foil not only to Batman, but really to the whole criminal underworld of Gotham City. He is his own agent of chaos. He doesn't have a very clear motivation, though from time to time you can see one sort of peek out. Usually he is trying to corrupt Batman's morals, and it is just a very interesting dynamic, which is why he gets used all the time. He's a really fun character to write, and it usually pays off as he ends up being a really great cinematic villain for the films and a really great antagonist to go up against in the games. With that being said, he has been used a lot. He was the main villain for all 4 Batman Arkham games. He played a pivotal role in Batman the Telltale series, arguably the main villain there as well, just in a different context. He got his own solo film recently. He was in the Dark Knight trilogy. He was in the Snyderverse. He was in the newest Batman movie. He was in the Keaton films. He was in the 60s show. He has gotten tons of mainstream attention and is usually portrayed as Batman's archenemy. Again, for good reason, but it does leave a lot of other great villains, technically A-list Batman villains, by the wayside, such as Two-Face and Penguin. And then don't even get me started on less recognizable villains such as Prometheus, who just has never gotten a live action or AAA video game adaptation. So yes, Joker's great, but again, there's a lot of narrative potential with other villains who end up getting left behind because of the focus on Joker. With all that being said, when I think about whether or not I think Joker should appear in Gotham Knights, the answer that I come up with is yeah, I think he should. And I'd like to explain why, because yes, I do think that there has been a lot of saturation with the character, and even if we were getting another Batman Arkham game in the Arkham continuity, I would not want Joker to be the main villain. I feel like they've gotten pretty much all the mileage out of that as they could in that series. But I think that Gotham Knights presents an interesting opportunity to really flip the dynamic of Joker in a similar way that Batman's dynamic was switched around when Joker died in the Arkham games. We saw his whole grieving process essentially in Arkham Knight. We can kind of see the opposite end of that, where we can see what happens to Joker when Batman no longer exists. You know, does he just become very depressed? Does he get really pissed off at the rest of the Gotham underworld that he wasn't the one that got to kill Batman and starts trying to kill off the suspects that he thinks could have killed Bruce Wayne? Either way, one thing is certain in my opinion, and it's that Joker has many interesting rivalries. Yes, Batman's is his most famous, but he also has a pretty strong rivalry with Batgirl. Batgirl has a lot of reasons to hate Joker. So does Jason Todd. Tim Drake and Dick Grayson probably do not have very fond feelings for this character either. And I think that Gotham Knights, again, just lends itself to a very interesting opportunity to see Joker portrayed in a way where we haven't seen him portrayed. We got the Joker movie where we got to see his rise to the classic criminal that we all know and love. And pretty much every other iteration of the character is a Batman versus Joker story, borrowing from The Killing Joke, and again, leaning into all those interesting ideologies. But I also think sort of neglecting other interesting facets of the Batman mythology that just, again, get left by the wayside. So with Gotham Knights, I certainly don't want Joker to overtake the story. I don't really even want him to be the main villain, but I would like there to be a villain quest maybe with him and Harley Quinn where we get to see how they've reinvented themselves after the death of Batman. And ultimately, I think just having a few hours to see what has become of Joker in this new Gotham City with this very different power dynamic, where now the Court of Owls are what the city fears as opposed to Batman. Whether I end up really liking Gotham Knights or not really caring for it, I think that it's fair to say that it is a very ambitious title. I really respect Warner Brothers Games Montreal for what they are doing, and they are going in very uncharted territory where they're really amping up the stakes of the Court of Owls, where Batman, Bruce Wayne, kind of had this notion that Gotham City had a crime problem but was trying to solve it, and then eventually went in too deep, started interfering with the Court of Owls and their manipulation of the city, and ended up dead. And now we get to see the Bat family have to try to step in his place and not only continue to fight the crime that Batman was successfully fighting, but also figure out what killed Bruce Wayne and how they can overcome that threat as well. So I do think that it would be interesting to see how the most notorious criminal mastermind of Gotham City reacts to this very different power dynamic, and to see what happens if he also no longer really has sway with the situation involving Gotham City and the Court of Owls, or if perhaps he can also put a wrench into their plans as well. Anyways, that's it from me for today. Let me know in the comments below what you think about Joker potentially returning to Gotham Knights. Please be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and we'll see you guys in the next one.